Welcome back, everyone, to Cess Talks Sports. Today's episode is a collaboration with BeWise PoliSports Perspective, and I am thrilled to have none other than the fabulous political Lil co-hosted with me. How's it going, Lil?
Oh, I'm doing great, Cess, and I'm so excited for this episode. Whenever we talk about disruptors in sports, I'm all in. And today we're diving into the incredible story of Renee Montgomery, who's breaking barriers and redefining what it means to be a leader in sports.
Absolutely, Lil. This is part of our Disruptor series, where we shine a light on individuals who are challenging norms and creating change in the world of sports. And Renee Montgomery, she's the perfect example. From her days as a star player at UConn to her historic move as a co-owner of the Atlanta Dream, and now her latest role as a broadcaster for the Unrivaled League, she's done it all.
Yes, and the timing couldn't be better. For those who don't know, Unrivaled is a groundbreaking new 3-on-3 basketball league with a equity model, meaning players are actually part owners. So having Renee join their broadcasting team isn't just about calling games. It's about pushing a vision of what sports will look like in the future. She's truly blazing trails on every level.
That's exactly right. And Lil, what really stands out to me is how Renee uses her platform so intentionally. She's not just playing a role in these spaces, she's reshaping them. Her career trajectory is significant because it's political, it's economic, and it's deeply personal.
Definitely. Let's break that down a little. Politically, her move into ownership was a statement. It happened during a time when the Atlanta Dream became a symbol of activism. Do you remember when the players, including Renee, publicly supported a political candidate in Georgia's Senate race? It was bold. It sent a message that athletes are more than just players, they're agents of change.
And economically, it's a huge deal too. Ownership, especially in women's sports, is rare. Oh, in Unrivaled, she's stepping into a league that's flipping the script on traditional sports business models. It's an investment in equity and empowerment.
Exactly. Renee's story is about breaking barriers, yes, but it's also about building something better, something more inclusive. That's why her work matters. It's not just about her success, it's about what she's paving the way for other players to be able to do.
And that's what we're here to talk about today. From her documentary, A Radical Act, to her involvement with Unrivaled, we'll explore how Renee Montgomery is shaping the future of sports and why her journey is so impactful for all of us.
We've got a lot to unpack, Seth, and we'll also be taking some audience questions later in our live discussion of this show in the future. Stay tuned, everyone. You don't want to miss this one.
When we come back, we'll dive into Renee's journey from UConn to the WNBA and beyond. Stick with us. You're listening to Cess Talks Sports and the BeWise PoliSports podcast. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us, we're diving into the inspiring journey of Renee Montgomery, a true disruptor in the world of sports and business. Lil, let's take a moment to walk through her incredible career, from her early days on the court to her groundbreaking role as a team owner.
Oh, absolutely, Seth. Renee's story is one for the history book. Let's start at the beginning. She first made her mark in college basketball at UConn, where she was nothing short of phenomenal. During her time there, she won two national championships and was named the 2009 Big East Player of the Year. Her leadership on the court was legendary, helping UConn cement its dominance in women's sports.
And what's so fascinating about her UConn career, Lil, is how it set the tone for what she would achieve later. She wasn't just a standout player, she was a leader, a team player, and someone who knew how to win. Those qualities carried her straight into the WNBA.
Exactly, Seth. In the WNBA, Renee was drafted by the Minnesota Lynx in 2009. Over the years, she played for several teams, including the Atlanta Dream, and had a stellar career. But she won two WNBA championships with the Lynx in 2015 and 2017 and became known for her sharpshooting and clutch performances. But here's the thing, Renee wasn't just focused on basketball. Even while playing, she was planting seeds for what would come next.
That's right, Lil. And what came next was huge. In 2020, she decided to step away from basketball to focus on social justice initiatives during one of the most politically charged years in recent history. That decision was pivotal. She became deeply involved in activism, advocating for racial justice and voter engagement, and used her voice to inspire change.
And it was that same activism that played a major role in one of the most talked about moments in WNBA history, the sale of the Atlanta Dream. If you remember, Seth, the team's former co-owner Kelly Loeffler faced backlash for her opposition to the Black Lives Matter movement. Renee's decision to step down into ownership wasn't just about business; It was a statement. It was about reclaiming a space for equity and progress.
Absolutely, Lil. And what makes it even more powerful is how Renee has tied her ownership role to her vision for the league's future. She's not just a part owner of the Atlanta Dream, she's an advocate for transforming the way we think about sports ownership and representation. That's what makes her story so significant. It's political, it's economic, and it's deeply personal.
And let's not forget the impact this has on a broader sports world. Renee Montgomery is showing us that what's possible when athletes take control of their narrative and their future. She's redefining what leadership looks like in sports, and she's paving the way for others to follow.
Exactly. And speaking of leadership, when we come back, we're going to talk about how Renee's new role with the Unrivaled League ties into this larger narrative. What does her involvement mean for the future of sports business? And how could it reshape the way leagues operate? Stay tuned. You're listening to Cess Talks Sports and the BeWise PoliSports podcast. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about Renee Montgomery, a trailblazer in women's basketball and beyond. So far, we've covered her journey from UConn star to WNBA champion and team owner. Now let's dive into her latest project that's inspiring people everywhere, her documentary, A Radical Act.
Yes, Seth, this documentary is a powerful look at Renee's journey, but it's much more than just the highlight reels of her career. A Radical Act digs deep to her decision to step away from basketball to focus on activism and her transition into ownership. It's a story about courage, defiance, and the willingness to disrupt traditional norms.
Absolutely, Lil. And one of the most significant things about this documentary is how accessible it is. Streaming on the Roku channel means it's reaching a broad audience. Sports fans, activists, and everyday people who might not have known much about Renee's story before. That kind of reach is critical because it shows what's possible when athletes take control of their narrative.
Right, says. And the title itself, A Radical Act, says so much. It's a nod to how Renee's decision, leaving basketball, speaking out on social justice, and stepping into ownership are all radical acts in a world that often discourages athletes, especially women of color, from using their platform for change. The documentary paints a vivid picture of how she redefined what it means to be a leader in sports.
And it's not just about Renee's story, it's about the themes she represents: activism, disruption, and innovation. The film shows how she's used her platform in ways that weren't just about personal gain, but about creating a ripple effect. For example, her role in the Atlanta Dream sale wasn't just about buying the team, it was about sending the message that athletes have the power to influence political and social change.
And that message resonates deeply, Seth. The documentary also highlights how Renee has defied expectations at every turn. She didn't just walk away from basketball, she walked towards something greater. She's proven that you can be an activist, an entrepreneur, and a disruptor, all while staying true to yourself and your values.
So I think what's so important here is how a radical act connects to the larger narrative of athletes stepping into roles traditionally dominated by others. Whether it's Renee owning a WNBA team or now joining the Rival League broadcast team, she's proven that athletes can do more than just play the game. They can change it.
Exactly, says. And what I love about the documentary is how it inspires viewers to think differently about what's possible. Whether you're an athlete, an entrepreneur, or someone just looking for inspiration, Renee's story challenges you to ask, how can I disrupt the norms in my own field? That's a powerful takeaway.
Well said, Lil. And when we come back, we'll dive into how Renee's involvement with the Unrivaled League is building on the themes of this documentary. What does it mean for the future of sports, and how could it change the business model entirely? Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Cess Talks Sports and BeWise PoliSports podcast. Welcome back, fam. If you're just joining us, we've been diving into Renee Montgomery's groundbreaking journey from WNBA champion to team owner and now the star of her documentary, A Radical Act. Now it's time to talk about her latest venture and what might be her most exciting role yet, joining the broadcast team for the Unrivaled League.
That's right, says. The Unrivaled League is one of the most innovative developments in women's basketball in years. For those who don't know it, it's a player owned league designed to give athletes more control over their careers and financial futures. With a $100 million broadcast deal with TNT, it's also making waves as a serious contender in professional sports broadcast. This is a big deal.
Absolutely. Lil, this league's equity driven, player focused model is disrupting the traditional structure of professional basketball. It's not just about playing games, it's about creating a sustainable future for athletes. And now, with Renee Montgomery joining the broadcast team, the league is adding someone who's already proven she's a leader on and off the court.
Exactly, says. Renee's involvement adds both credibility and visibility to the league. She's not just a former player. She's a team owner, an activist, and now a broadcaster. Her presence sends a clear message. The Unrivaled League isn't just about basketball league. It's a movement that's redefining how women's sports can operate.
And think about what that means for fans and viewers. Renee is someone who understands the game from every angle, player, owner, and now commentator. Her insights will elevate the broadcast experience, making it more engaging and authentic. Plus, having a name like Renee Montgomery associated with the league instantly raises its profile.
Says you're spot on. Renee also brings something unique to the table. Her ability to connect with audiences. Whether she's in an ownership meeting or speaking with fans, she knows how to communicate the importance of what's happening in women's sports. Her role in a rival league isn't just about analyzing games. It's about being a voice for the players and the league's mission.
And let's not overlook the timing. The league is launching with incredible momentum. $100 million broadcast deal, a player-owned model, and now someone like Renee on the mic. It's a recipe for success and a sign that women's basketball is stepping into a new era of innovation and opportunity.
Says, I think this is just the beginning. The Unrivaled League has the potential to change the entire landscape of the sports business. And with Renee Montgomery as part of the team, it's clear they're setting a new standard for what's possible in women's sports.
I couldn't agree more, Lil. When we come back, we'll discuss what Renee's dual roles as an owner and broadcaster mean for the future of women's basketball and how her influence could pave the way for even bigger changes in sports. Stay tuned. You're listening to Cess Talks Sports and the BeWise PoliSports podcast. Welcome back to our Disruptor series. We've been unpacking Renee Montgomery's incredible journey, from her WNBA days to her groundbreaking role as an owner and now as a broadcaster with the Unrivaled League. But what's really at the heart of her story is the political and economic significance of everything she's accomplished. Let's dive into why her path is so transformative.
Says, let's start with her ownership of Atlanta Dream. Renee became a co-owner of the WNBA team, and that was a seismic shift in the league. Women's professional sports have historically been dominated by male executive owners and decision makers. Renee's entry into the space sends a powerful message about representation, particularly for Black women.
That's a great point, Lil. Her ownership represents more than just a personal achievement. It's about opening doors for others. Think about the visibility it creates. Young women and girls, especially Black girls, are seeing someone who looks like them in a position of power, making decisions to shape the game. That's a level of inspiration we can't underestimate.
Exactly, says. And what's equally powerful is how her activism played into the sale of the dream. Remember, the team was sold amid significant political and social justice movements. Renee was vocal about the importance of leadership that aligns with the value and equality and justice. Her ownership symbolizes a shift towards inclusivity in sports leadership, which is long overdue.
And now with her involvement in the Unrivaled League, she's taking it a step further. This league is player-owned, equity-driven, and focused on empowering athletes financially and professionally. Renee's role as a broadcaster isn't just about calling games, it's about amplifying the league's mission and showing what's possible when players are in control.
Right. And if the Unrivaled League succeeds, it could set a precedent for other leagues to adopt a similar model. Think about the ripple effect. Athletes in other sports might start demanding more equity and ownership in their league. This isn't just a moment, it's the start of a movement.
And let's talk about Renee's role in broadcasting. It's so important to see Black women in sports media. For too long, the voices shaping the narrative have been predominantly male and often lack diversity. Renee brings not only her expertise as a former player and owner, but also her unique perspective as a Black woman.
Exactly, says. Her presence on the broadcast team helps diversify sports coverage in a way that's long overdue. It's not just about calling plays, it's about offering insight that resonates with a broader audience. And let's be real, her voice carries weight. Fans, players, and even executives will listen to what she has to say.
Absolutely. Renee's involvement in all these spaces, ownership, equity driven leagues, and broadcasting represents a blueprint for what the future of sports can look like. It's about inclusion, innovation, and empowering the next generation. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at how Renee's journey could inspire systemic changes across all levels of sports. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Cess Talks Sports in the BeWise PoliSports podcast. Welcome back to our Disruptor series. So far, we've explored Renee Montgomery's trailblazing journey from her playing days to becoming an owner and now her role in the Unrivaled League. But what's even more exciting is how her impact could shape the future of sports business. Let's talk about what comes next.
Says the moves Renee is making aren't just groundbreaking for today. They're laying the foundation for tomorrow. Her transition from player to owner, and now her role in an equity driven league, signifies a shift in how we think about sports ownership and business models. Historically, owners have been concentrated in the hands of a wealthy few, often excluding women of and people of color. Renee is showing that it doesn't have to stay that way.
Facts, Lil. Look at the Unrivaled League. It's flipping the script by giving players ownership stakes and a voice in how the league operates. This kind of model could completely redefine professional sports. Imagine a future where athletes aren't just employees, they're stakeholders in the success of their leagues. That's a game changer.
And it's not just about money, Seth. Equity driven models create opportunities for athletes to have a say in decision making. They're not just performing, they're partners. That changes the power dynamics and ensure that people driving the league's success, its players are fairly rewarded and represented.
Exactly. And Renee's involvement gives the Unrivaled League a level of credibility that can't be overstated. Her success as an owner and her activism show that she's not just joining this league to be part of something new. She's there to help build something that lasts.
And speaking of building something that lasts, let's talk about her legacy. Renee is creating a blueprint for the next generation. She's showing athletes that their careers don't have to end when they stop playing. They can transition into ownership, media, and even launch entirely new ventures like the Unrivaled League.
Right, Lil. She's proven that athletes can be more than just players. They can be leaders, innovators, and disruptors. And it's not just inspiring for athletes. Young women and girls watching her story are learning that they too can break barriers in spaces where they've traditionally been excluded. That kind of representation matters.
It really does, Seth. And think about the ripple effect. What Renee is doing today could inspire a whole new wave of equity driven leagues across different sports. She's showing that there's another way to do business, one that prioritizes fairness, inclusion, and shared success. That's a legacy worth celebrating.
And we're here to celebrate it. Renee Montgomery is more than a disruptor. She's a visionary. Her impact is changing the landscape of sports, not just for this generation, but for many to come. What a journey we've taken today. Let's take a moment to reflect on some of the key points we've covered about Renee Montgomery and her incredible impact on the world of sports.
Absolutely, says. Renee Montgomery is the epitome of a disruptor. She's not just breaking barriers, she's building bridges. From the days dominating on the court at UConn to her pivotal role in the WNBA ownership and how her work with the Unrivaled League, Renee is reshaping the sports business landscape. Ownership, equity, and representation. These aren't just buzzwords, they're the foundation of systemic change in sports.
And let's not forget the broader implications of her work. Renee has proven that it's possible to innovate and challenge traditional systems in a way that benefits everyone involved. Whether it's her advocacy for social justice, her groundbreaking role as a black woman owner, or her involvement in equity driven models like Unrivaled, her story is one of empowerment and progress.
Exactly. And if you haven't already, you've got to go check out A Radical Act. It's on Roku on the Roku channel. It's a must watch documentary that dives into activism and her transition from athlete to game changer. Plus, keep an eye on her work with the Unrivaled League. This is just the beginning of a movement that could redefine professional sports as we know it.
Now, before we wrap up, we want to give you a sneak peek of what's coming next in our Disruptor series. We'll be diving into the story of another trailblazer who's making waves in the sports world. Candace Parker, who was just announced, will be heading up the Unrivaled broadcast team, and trust us, you won't want to miss it.
But we don't want this conversation to end here. We love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. Put your thoughts in the comments section and join us for the live Disruptors broadcast be coming soon. What do you think about Renee Montgomery's journey? How do you see her influence shaping the future of sports and business? Connect with us on social media, share your insight, and join the conversation.
That's it for today's episode of Cess Talks Sports in collaboration with the BeWise PoliSports podcast. Thank you for being part of this important conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, and share this episode with your friends and family or someone who needs to hear it just to keep the dialogue going. And remember, sports are never just about the game. It's about the stories we tell and the change we create. Together, we can amplify these important stories and spark meaningful change. Go check out the documentary A Radical Act and make a radical act of your own. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Cess Talks Sports and BeWise PoliSports Podcast. Until next time, stay tuned. Talk soon. We out.